The Galactic Empire was home to some of the most advanced species in the galaxy. Their technology and knowledge far surpassed that of many others. Among the most impressive achievements was the simulation technology used for training. These simulations were designed to test a species' ability to survive on the most dangerous and unforgiving worlds in the galaxy. The Class 13 Deathworld was the ultimate test, a world so deadly that only the strongest and most capable could survive its brutal environment. Creatures there were vicious, the terrain was treacherous, and the atmosphere was thick with hazards. The Empire had created these simulations to push species to their limits, to make them stronger, to ensure they would survive anything the galaxy could throw at them. But even with all the challenges, no species had ever truly conquered it. Then came humans. The humans were different. Their world was not like any other in the galaxy. Earth was a world of survival, but it was also a world of creativity and adaptability. While other species relied on their physical strength or advanced technologies, humans relied on something more. They had an unparalleled ability to think, adapt, and learn. The Galactic Empire had heard rumors about humanity, but they didn't believe it. No species had ever survived, let alone thrived, on a Class 13 Deathworld. When humans were invited to participate in the simulation, the galaxy watched with curiosity. No one expected them to succeed. The aliens scoffed at the idea of humans even surviving for more than a few days. They were small, fragile beings compared to the mighty warriors of the galaxy, and their technology was primitive in comparison to the Empire's advancements. But humanity had one thing the aliens did not fully understand: heart. The first few hours were rough. The humans struggled with the harsh terrain, thick jungles filled with predators and storms that could strip the skin from their bones. But they didn't panic. They didn't break. Instead, they quickly adapted. While the alien species had their own set of impressive abilities, the humans' ability to think quickly and problem-solve in such a harsh environment set them apart. They used their limited resources wisely, finding ways to build shelter and use the natural environment to their advantage. One of the first things the humans did was create traps. The alien predators were fast and vicious, but the humans learned quickly. They used simple tools, like branches and stones, to create snares and pitfalls to catch the creatures that roamed the jungle. The alien viewers were astounded. They had assumed that the humans would struggle with the most basic survival skills, but they were wrong. The humans also discovered something the aliens had never considered: the power of teamwork. While many species relied on individual prowess, humans worked together. They communicated, they planned, they strategized, and most importantly, they kept their cool under pressure. Even in the most dire situations, when a creature lunged at them, or the sky darkened with deadly storms, the humans did not lose hope. They didn't give up. They fought as one unit. They understood that survival wasn't just about strength, it was about cooperation and intelligence. Days turned into weeks, and the humans continued to surprise everyone. They didn't just survive. They thrived. They made their way across the Deathworld, using their knowledge of biology, their scientific understanding, and their unrelenting will to survive. They discovered medicinal plants to heal their wounds, fashioned tools from the bones and teeth of the creatures they had killed, and developed methods of hiding from the most dangerous predators. The alien scientists who had created the simulation began to take notice. At first, they thought it was a fluke. Perhaps the humans had just gotten lucky, but luck couldn't explain their ability to consistently adapt to every new challenge. The simulation creators had built the Deathworld to be a perfect test, one that no species could conquer. And yet humans were not only surviving, they were actively changing the way the simulation worked. The leaders of the Galactic Empire were intrigued. They had always seen themselves as the pinnacle of evolution, the epitome of strength and intelligence. But now the humans were challenging everything they thought they knew. How could this primitive species, whose technology and biology were so far behind the Empire's, be so successful on a Deathworld? It didn't make sense. Word spread across the galaxy. The humans were no longer the underdogs. They were a force to be reckoned with. Their success in the simulation was a matter of pride for some, a source of confusion for others, and for a few, it was a reason for concern. The humans were proving that survival wasn't just about power, it was about how you used your mind, your heart, and your ability to adapt. And as their success continued, the other races in the galaxy began to realize that maybe, just maybe, the humans weren't as weak as they had once believed. As the humans pushed forward, completing each phase of the simulation with increasing ease, the pressure built. They weren't just surviving the Class 13 Deathworld, they were mastering it. What would happen when they completed the simulation? Would they be satisfied with just surviving, or would they ask for more? One thing was certain: the humans had changed the game, and the galaxy would never be the same again. This first part sets the stage for the human race to prove themselves in the face of overwhelming odds, creating a foundation for the next stages of their journey in the simulation. It introduces key themes of resilience, adaptability, and teamwork, which will drive the story forward and captivate the audience. As word of humanity's success spread across the galaxy, the alien races that had once underestimated the humans began to take notice. The simulation had been designed to challenge the most advanced species, but humans were different. They had conquered the Class 13 Deathworld, not by force but by their ability to adapt, think quickly, and work together. What had started as a simple challenge had quickly turned into a spectacle, one that drew the attention of the entire galaxy. The deep alien races were puzzled. They had watched as the humans faced monster-sized predators, deadly environmental hazards, and harsh conditions. With each passing day, the humans had pushed the boundaries of what was possible, surviving with methods the aliens had never considered. The humans weren't just surviving, they were thriving, learning from their environment and turning it to their advantage. Among the onlookers, the Galactic Empire's military officials were the most intrigued. They had spent generations perfecting their tactics and technologies to fight and survive on Deathworlds, but none of their best soldiers had ever been able to complete the simulation. Yet the humans had done so with astonishing speed. They were not just surviving, they were excelling. The humans' approach was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. While other species had relied on their strength, speed, or technological superiority, humans had used their intellect. They didn't fight the Deathworld, they learned from it. When they encountered danger, they didn't simply react. They studied it, figured out how it worked, and adapted. Their survival wasn't about brute force. It was about smart decisions, careful planning, and the ability to stay calm in the face of chaos. This new type of fighter did not go unnoticed. The military officials began to study the humans' performance. They pored over every detail of the simulation, searching for an explanation. How could a species that had only just mastered space travel excel on a world designed to kill even the most advanced species? They watched as the humans quickly learned to track creatures through thick forests, built makeshift shelters, and used every resource they could find. The humans even used the natural disasters of the world to their advantage. When massive storms rolled in, they didn't hide. They used the wind to push their traps further, making their hunting more efficient. Soon, the humans had mastered every aspect of the Deathworld. What had been designed as the ultimate test of strength and survival had become a playground for their ingenuity. The simulation's creators watched in disbelief as humans outsmarted each deadly challenge they faced. Their approach was methodical, each decision leading to another step forward. Where the aliens had expected failure, they were met with success. It became clear: the humans had turned the Deathworld into a game of strategy, and they were winning. It was at that point that the humans made a bold request. They wanted a harder mode. They had conquered the Class 13 Deathworld, and now they wanted to push the boundaries even further. The simulation creators hesitated. The higher difficulty levels had been reserved for only the most advanced races in the galaxy, and humans had barely scratched the surface of what was possible. Could they really handle a more difficult challenge? The decision wasn't easy. The Galactic Empire had never seen a species like this before. They had tested their simulations on countless others, but no one had ever asked for more. No one had ever made it this far. But the humans were persistent. They had proven themselves in the most brutal conditions, and now they wanted to prove that they could do even more. Their request was simple: make it harder. And after much deliberation, the simulation creators finally agreed. The new mode would introduce even deadlier creatures, more extreme environmental conditions, and less time to rest. The difficulty would be ramped up to levels that would challenge even the strongest of species. The humans, however, were undeterred. They had faced the impossible before, and they were ready to face it again. When the new simulation began, humans wasted no time in adjusting to the increased difficulty. The Deathworld had already become a familiar place, but now everything was more dangerous. The storms were stronger, the creatures more aggressive, and the terrain more hostile. The humans quickly discovered new ways to adapt. They used their knowledge of biology and physics to create new tools and weapons. Where others might have panicked, they calmly assessed the situation and came up with a plan. One of the most difficult challenges they faced was the introduction of a new species of creature, massive, heavily armored beasts that could crush anything in their path. The humans had never seen anything like them. They were fast, powerful, and relentless. The aliens watching from the control room thought the humans would fail. How could such a small species possibly overcome such a formidable enemy? But the humans did not back down. They studied the creatures, observing their behavior and weaknesses. It didn't take long for them to develop a plan. Using their resourcefulness, they created makeshift traps and weapons designed to exploit the beast's vulnerabilities. They worked together, combining their knowledge of engineering and survival skills to create a weapon that could take down the creatures, and they succeeded. With each new challenge, the humans adapted faster and faster. The more the simulation tried to break them, the more they found ways to thrive. They built stronger shelters, developed better weapons, and learned to use the terrain to their advantage. The aliens who had watched in disbelief were now forced to acknowledge that humans were a force to be reckoned with. For the first time in the history of the simulation, the humans had pushed the limits of what was possible. No other species had ever requested a harder challenge, let alone succeeded. The simulation creators had designed it to be unbeatable, but now they were forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew about survival. The humans were not just surviving, they were rewriting the rules. The galaxy, once sure that humans were nothing more than an insignificant species, was now forced to see them as something more, a force that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. And as the humans continued to excel, one question remained on everyone's mind. What would they do next? This second part continues to build on the themes of human resilience and ingenuity, while introducing more challenges for them to overcome. The story shows the humans' ability to adapt and thrive in a hostile environment, solidifying their place as a formidable force in the galaxy. The news that humans had requested a harder mode for the simulation sent shockwaves through the Galactic Empire. For the first time in history, a species had not only survived the Class 13 Deathworld, but had dominated it. The simulation creators, once proud of their unbeatable challenge, were forced to reassess their creation. They had designed the Deathworld to test the very limits of survival, but the humans had shattered that limit. They had outsmarted the deadliest of environments, outwitted the fiercest creatures, and survived longer than any other species in the galaxy. Now, the simulation creators had no choice but to grant the humans' request. They made the environment even more deadly. The terrain became more unstable, the creatures more aggressive, and the natural disasters even more unpredictable. The humans, however, were not deterred. They had proven themselves before, and now they were ready to prove that they could conquer anything. The harder mode would push them to the edge, but they were determined to succeed. When the new simulation began, the humans quickly realized that their previous methods would not be enough to survive. The environment had changed. Massive earthquakes shook the ground while storms of toxic rain pelted the landscape, threatening to poison anything caught outside. The beasts that roamed the Deathworld were even larger and more dangerous. The skies were filled with flying predators that could swoop down and attack without warning. The new simulation was truly a nightmare. But the humans were different. They didn't panic. They didn't fall apart in the face of danger. Instead, they quickly assessed the situation and began to adapt. They worked together as a team, combining their knowledge of the environment with their resourcefulness. While others might have been paralyzed by fear, the humans acted swiftly. They used the terrain to their advantage, finding ways to shelter from the storms, using the natural disasters to set traps for the creatures, and creating weapons that could defend them from the larger beasts. One of the first challenges they faced was a new breed of predator, one that was far more terrifying than anything they had encountered before. These creatures were massive, with thick armored scales that could withstand even the sharpest of weapons. Their claws were as long as a human's arm, and they had teeth that could crush bone with a single bite. The humans knew that fighting these creatures head-on would be suicide, so they quickly came up with a plan to outsmart them. They used their knowledge of the environment to create traps that could immobilize the predators. They dug deep pits and covered them with branches and leaves, so when the creatures walked over them, they would fall into the trap. They also created makeshift spears and lances, using the bones of the creatures they had already killed as materials. These weapons were crude, but they were effective, and they allowed the humans to defend themselves against the predators without having to engage them in direct combat. As they moved deeper into the Deathworld, the humans faced even greater challenges. The environment itself seemed to conspire against them. Rivers turned into raging torrents, flooding the land and making travel nearly impossible. The air became thick with smoke from distant fires, making it hard to breathe. The creatures grew more numerous, and the once familiar landscape became unrecognizable. But the humans pressed on, using their creativity and determination to overcome every obstacle. They adapted to the storms, building sturdy shelters that could withstand the worst of the weather. They used the ruins of fallen trees to create walls and roofs, and they learned how to make fires that could burn even in the heavy rain. When the rivers flooded, they used floating rafts to navigate the waters, and when the smoke became too thick, they fashioned breathing masks from the materials they found around them. The humans had faced the impossible before, and they were doing it again. Meanwhile, the alien races that had been watching the humans' progress were in awe. What they had expected to be a short-lived experiment had turned into a stunning display of human ingenuity. The simulation was supposed to be the ultimate test, one that no species could survive for long, but the humans had proven everyone wrong. They were not only surviving, they were thriving in a world that had been designed to destroy them. The Galactic Empire's military officials were especially concerned. They had watched the humans take down the fiercest of predators, build shelters that could withstand the harshest storms, and adapt to every new challenge with ease. They had never seen anything like it. The humans were not just surviving, they were becoming a force to be reckoned with. The question now was, what would they do next? The simulation creators, realizing that the humans had mastered their creation, decided to introduce even more challenges. They increased the frequency of the storms, made the predators even more aggressive, and created obstacles that seemed impossible to overcome. They wanted to break the humans, to push them to the limit and beyond. But instead of breaking, the humans adapted once again. They began to use the creatures themselves against the environment. They studied the predators and learned how to herd them into specific areas where they could trap them more easily. They used the larger predators as a means to clear the land of the smaller creatures, making it safer for the humans to travel. They had turned the Deathworld into their own battlefield, one that they controlled through their intelligence and cooperation. It became clear that the harder mode had not broken the humans, it had only made them stronger. Every challenge they faced, every new threat was met with a creative solution. The harder the simulation became, the more the humans rose to the occasion. They weren't just surviving, they were mastering the Deathworld, and it was starting to look like there was no challenge they couldn't overcome. And so, the simulation continued. The humans, unbroken and unyielding, pushed forward into the unknown, ready to face whatever new dangers awaited them. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. The humans were not just survivors. They were the future, and they had proven that no world, no matter how deadly, could stop them. In Part 3, we see the humans face the next level of challenges in the Deathworld simulation. They continue to prove their resilience and ingenuity, adapting to each new obstacle with creativity and teamwork. This section shows their growing strength and the growing concern of the alien races who are beginning to realize just how formidable humans really are. The humans had conquered every new challenge the simulation creators threw at them. What had started as a test of strength and survival had become a showcase of humanity's ability to outthink, outlast, and outmaneuver even the deadliest of environments. But as humanity's successes grew, so did the tension between the Galactic Empire and the humans. What had once been a small, seemingly insignificant species was now showing that it could survive and even excel in ways the Empire had never expected. The military leaders of the Galactic Empire were starting to take notice. Some of them were in awe of the humans' abilities. They had come to realize that humans were more than just survivors. They were capable of reshaping the way battles were fought. Their resourcefulness, intelligence, and teamwork made them an asset that could not be ignored. But not everyone in the Empire saw the humans' successes as something to admire. Some leaders were growing nervous. To them, the humans' ability to survive on a Class 13 Deathworld was a sign of something much more dangerous. What would happen if humanity took their newfound skills into real combat? What if they decided to expand their reach beyond their own planet and sought to conquer other worlds? The Empire had long prided itself on being the most powerful force in the galaxy. But now, humans were proving that they could take on the deadliest challenges and win. If they could conquer the simulation, could they conquer the galaxy itself? Division began to grow within the Galactic Empire. One faction, led by those who respected humanity's strength, believed that it was time for a partnership. They saw the humans as potential allies, powerful but respectful. Together, they could rule the galaxy as one. This faction argued that humans were too valuable to be left to their own devices. It was better to ally with them than to fear them. On the other side of the debate were those who saw the humans as a threat, a species that could topple the Empire's long-established dominance. They believed that humanity's success in the simulation was just the beginning. What if they learned to fight on their terms? What if they turned their eyes toward conquering the galaxy? These leaders began to argue that the humans must be contained. If they were allowed to grow unchecked, they might one day challenge the Empire's rule. Back on Earth, the humans were completely unaware of the political storm brewing in the galaxy. They were still focused on surviving and thriving in the simulation. They were determined to prove that no challenge was too great for them. But as their success continued, the pressure started to mount. The simulation creators, once proud of their unbreakable simulation, were now facing a growing crisis. They had never expected the humans to rise so high. The simulation was supposed to be the ultimate test of survival, a test that would break even the strongest. And yet, here were the humans, breaking all expectations and emerging victorious at every turn. The humans were now facing their greatest challenge yet. The simulation had become more than just a test of physical survival. It had become a test of everything the humans were capable of. Each new challenge was harder than the last, and the humans were rising to meet it. But it wasn't just the simulation that was changing. It was also the humans themselves. They were growing stronger, more confident, and more united. They had learned to think and act as one. They had become a true team, one that would not easily be broken. The simulation creators, realizing that the humans were becoming a threat to their carefully constructed system, decided to introduce a final, ultimate challenge. This new phase would be unlike anything the humans had ever faced before. The environment would change completely, and the predators would be more cunning and dangerous. The human team would have to use everything they had learned, all their knowledge and skills, to survive. But there was more to it than just the simulation. The political rift in the Galactic Empire was widening. The humans' successes had triggered a wave of fear and uncertainty. The pro-human faction argued that the time had come to forge an alliance with Earth. They believed that humans had earned their place in the galaxy, and that together they could achieve unimaginable things. They saw the humans as powerful allies, not threats. On the other hand, the faction that viewed humans as a danger was growing stronger. They called for a swift and decisive action, one that would prevent the humans from gaining any more power. Their message was clear: the humans must be stopped before they grow too strong. They were already proving themselves to be a force in the simulation, and soon they could prove it in the galaxy. The debate became heated, and the leaders of the Tom Empire found themselves at an impasse. The situation was delicate, and no one could predict what would happen next. Some proposed sending emissaries to Earth to negotiate with the humans directly. Others suggested that the best course of action was to eliminate the threat before it could grow any larger. Back in the simulation, the humans were completely focused on their survival. They had no idea of the political turmoil they had caused. They were too busy fighting for their lives on a world that was constantly trying to kill them. They had faced every imaginable challenge, and yet they had continued to push forward. But the simulation creators knew that they had to go further. They had to push the humans to the edge, make them face something so overwhelming that it would break them. And so, the final phase of the simulation began. The humans were prepared, but they had no idea what was coming. The simulation creators unleashed an environment so hostile, so unforgiving, that it seemed impossible to survive. Deadly creatures with advanced intelligence appeared, hunting the humans as they attempted to navigate through the increasingly hostile world. The storms became more violent and the terrain more dangerous. But the humans did not falter. They had learned, adapted, and survived against the odds time and time again. And now, as the final phase of the simulation began, they were more united than ever before. They would not be broken. They would not back down. As the humans continued to survive and fight through the most intense challenge they had ever faced, the galaxy watched with bated breath. What would happen next? Would the humans finally be broken? Or would they continue to prove that no challenge, no matter how great, was beyond their ability to conquer? In Part 4, the growing political divide within the Galactic Empire is explored, as human success in the simulation forces leaders to confront the possibility of an emerging threat. The humans themselves remain focused on survival, unaware of the brewing conflict. This part sets the stage for the ultimate challenge in the simulation and the shifting power dynamics in the galaxy. The tension in the galaxy had reached a boiling point. As the humans continued to succeed in the Class 13 Deathworld simulation, the leaders of the Galactic Empire found themselves at odds with one another. Some factions saw humanity as an asset, a potential ally that could bring new strength to the galaxy. Others, however, saw them as a threat, a rising power that could challenge the long-established dominance of the Empire. No one had ever seen a species like the humans, and their ability to adapt and survive against impossible odds had created uncertainty. Back in the simulation, the humans remained unaware of the political storm brewing outside. Their focus was on surviving the increasingly difficult challenges thrown at them. The simulation creators had spared no effort in making the environment more hostile, introducing new dangers and obstacles at every turn. It was a world filled with threats, but the humans had proven time and again that they were not easily defeated. Their resourcefulness, teamwork, and sheer will to survive had carried them through every challenge so far. Now, the final phase of the simulation was about to begin. The creators had decided to push the humans to their absolute limit. They knew that no species had ever completed this phase, and they believed that this time, the humans would finally break. They had designed the environment to be as hostile as possible, an arena where only the strongest, most adaptable beings could survive. The stakes had never been higher, and the galaxy watched eagerly to see if the humans could survive this ultimate test. The simulation began with a violent shake of the ground. The once stable terrain now cracked and buckled, creating deep fissures that swallowed anything in their path. The sky turned a fiery orange as massive storms began to rage across the landscape, turning the air thick with smoke and ash. The creatures that roamed the Deathworld grew more aggressive and intelligent. They hunted in packs, coordinated by some unseen force, and their tactics were unlike anything the humans had encountered before. But the humans did not flinch. They had seen worse, and they had survived. They quickly assessed the new dangers and began to adapt as they always did. The storm was fierce, but the humans used it to their advantage. They knew that they had to stay hidden from the predators and avoid the falling debris. They set up their shelters with precision, using every scrap of material they could find to reinforce their defenses. The creatures in the new simulation phase were unlike anything the humans had seen before. They were not only massive but also equipped with advanced hunting tactics that made them much more dangerous. The humans had to be careful, for one wrong move could mean their end. But once again they rose to the challenge. They used their ingenuity to create new traps, weapons, and tools to defend themselves. They studied the creatures' behaviors, finding their weaknesses and exploiting them. They worked together, combining their strengths and skills to outsmart the predators at every turn. As the humans continued to navigate the increasingly hostile world, they encountered new obstacles. The once familiar terrain was now a deadly maze of shifting rocks, poisonous plants, and fire-spitting geysers. Rivers of lava appeared where there had once been peaceful streams, and the ground trembled with the power of hidden earthquakes. The humans had to be constantly on the move, never staying in one place for too long. But they never gave up. They kept moving forward, always adapting, always finding a way to survive. Through it all, their unity was their greatest strength. They had learned to rely on each other, to trust in their collective abilities. There was no room for fear or hesitation. Every decision had to be made quickly, and every move had to be calculated. The humans worked like a well-oiled machine, each member playing a vital role in their survival. They knew that they were facing the ultimate test, and they had no intention of failing. Meanwhile, the leaders of the Galactic Empire continued to watch in disbelief. The simulation was supposed to break the humans, to prove once and for all that no species could survive on the Class 13 Deathworld for long. But the humans had proven everyone wrong. They were surviving, adapting, and thriving. The simulation creators had underestimated them, and now they were paying the price. The humans were not just surviving, they were mastering the Deathworld. The political divide within the Empire grew wider. The pro-human faction argued that the humans should be embraced as allies, that their incredible resilience and adaptability made them an invaluable asset to the galaxy. They believed that the humans could bring a new kind of strength to the Empire, one that could help them face challenges they had never even imagined. But the opposing faction, which saw the humans as a growing threat, argued that the galaxy could not allow such a powerful species to rise unchecked. They believed that humanity's success in the simulation was just the beginning. If the humans were left to their own devices, they could become the most powerful force in the galaxy. One that could topple the Empire itself. As the humans neared the final stages of the simulation, the tension in the galaxy reached a peak. The fate of humanity and the future of the galaxy hung in the balance. The humans had proven that they could survive anything the simulation creators threw at them. Now the final test awaited them, a challenge so extreme that no species had ever been able to survive. Would the humans finally be broken? Or would they once again defy the odds and prove that nothing was impossible? The answer would soon become clear. The final phase of the simulation had begun and the humans were ready. They had already faced the impossible and they had come out victorious. Now they would face the ultimate challenge, one that would push them beyond anything they had ever known. But no matter how difficult it became, the humans would not stop. They had already proven that they could survive the most hostile of environments. And they would prove once again that nothing, not even a Deathworld designed to kill, could stand in their way. In Part 5, the humans faced the most intense phase of the simulation, testing their adaptability, teamwork, and ingenuity in ways they have never encountered before. The political tension in the Galactic Empire grows as humanity continues to succeed, with factions forming around how to deal with this newfound power. The story builds toward the ultimate challenge, with the humans determined to prove that no obstacle is too great for them to overcome. A mini D.